Next, we will look at the economic rationale behind the science, technology, and innovation policies. We have already understood in the neoclassical approach as to how, because of the very specific nature of the knowledge that is of public good, it will lead to a problem of market failure. Essentially, we have looked at in detail the underinvestment that will happen in research and development because the private enterprises will not be able to realize the overall social impact that is being made in the society. Focus that has led to the major conclusion that there is a need for the policy intervention in order to ensure that investment take place in research and development. Next, we have also understood and looked at system of innovation approach. Innovation system is not an economic theory in the same sense maybe as a neoclassical or evolutionary economic, but the concept is essentially integrates the theoretical perspective and also bring in empirical insights which are based on several decades of research. What you see there is innovation is now being seen as a cumulative process which is path dependent and also context dependent. That is why innovation policies then they need to build upon these insights in the specific context and why the best practices now cannot be just transplanted from one innovation system to the another. So these are the highlights which we have picked up from the innovation system approach, where innovation is seen as an interactive process and the competence of single innovating firm is important, but so is the essentially the competence of suppliers, users, knowledge, institutions and different actors, policymakers, etc. The linkages and the quality of interaction is also very important in the final outcome. That is why if you look at the innovation policies which will be focusing merely on subsidizing and protecting suppliers of knowledge, they would rather be incomplete because innovation is being seen as an outcome of a interactive process of a larger ecosystem. At the max, there is a need also to understand the technological opportunities, absorptive capacity, and at the same time there is a need to give attention to the linkages that is there with the suppliers, etc. So innovation system in that sense can be seen as a framework both for innovation and for competence building. And competence building will involve learning and renew the skills and insights which are necessary to innovate. And innovation process as a process of a joint production where innovation and innovations and enhanced competence are the major output. Improvement in the productivity, efficiency are also the outcome as such. So overall the social climate which is existing within an economy, the ecosystem that is there to support the innovation activities become a very important part that has been highlighted by the systems of innovation approach. Next one is the mission mode approach. In the recent years, we have witnessed a major shift in the way the innovation policies is being framed and also the claims that has come from them. To a major extent different from this STI, science and technology policies. Increasingly you see that STI policies they get support by the state and they're formulated and implemented with the idea to accomplish certain missions. So in this framing what you have missions are more or less clearly defined problems or the goals of high societal priorities. The so-called mission oriented innovation policies, the idea is to seek and to orient the production of scientific knowledge, technology and innovation towards the socially or societally defined missions. And this in that sense marks a major difference or a profound shift of the overall rationale for the STI policies. So this term mission has been used before and in the current context it has also expanded further and has attached different meanings to that. The basic idea if you see is look at the title of the book by Professor Nelson on the moon and the ghetto and essays on public policy analysis which come in 1977. Here the title is if we can land a man on a moon, why can't we solve the problem of ghettos? So the idea is essentially to identify some major societal mission and then channelize the energies from different actors, stakeholders and bring and create an ecosystem that will lead to the successful attainment of that particular mission. And the fundamental difference that is there in this new approach to mission is that science, technology, innovation policy is now being called upon directly and intentionally to support these societal problems. It is not that you have a scientific research going on in maybe a university or a research lab, and then there is a problem of a poverty and inequality that you want to meet through different policies. No. Now, if you want to meet the problem of maybe poverty, the idea here is that maybe the food security issues can be addressed, then why not design the policies which will bring together the scientific developments that will lead to the elevation of the poverty and maybe the malnutrition that exists in the society. There is no separation, and the idea is to bring science and technology and innovation together to meet that societal challenge. That challenge may be related to energy, like we are now facing this climate change related issues. Then it could be related to mobility, health, and these major challenges which are now being addressed. The reason for these shifts, in fact, if you look at over the last 4 to 5 decades, are various, and they also need to be understood in detail. Particularly in the European context, what has been seen that there is an increasing perception that science technology has contributed to societal development. European discourse, there has been an increasing perception that STI has contributed to societal development. That has been normatively unacceptable, and all of these developments and undermine the way funding has been done for STI and for the policies, because if you see that maybe because of the scientific developments you have now a major change in terms of the way people transport from one to another, but that with the use of the non-renewable resources, but that has created another problem which related to the climate change, etc. So then if we now want to find an answers to the challenges, and we can define the mission to begin with, which are then defined in such a way that the societal problems are identified, and the focus of STI policy would be to design and implement them in such a way that it addresses the major concern. So the consequences of the STI policies, which may be either earlier not understood or not addressed, are need to be understood and addressed, and the policies need to be designed in such a way. And the incentive structure which might be created will vary. As a result, the framework conditions which are created will vary, and what you will find is that the actors which are engaged in that will also vary. Initially the focus might be only the scientists and technocrats, but now you may have to bring in more people within that. So there is also an evolution of this mission oriented policies over a period of a time. In a traditional sense, it was being defined as a system public policy which draws on the frontier of knowledge to attain specific goal, or basically big science being deployed to meet a big problem, as in the words of Professor Mozzicato. And if you see the recent definition, which also talks about initiatives which are very ambitious, exploratory, groundbreaking in nature, cross-disciplinary, targeting a concrete problem challenge with the large impact, well-defined time frame. More specifically, they have clearly defined societal goals or technological goals, and preferably a qualified or quantified target. Progress is being monitored, and in this case the directionality and intentionality of the initiatives, it is a one which differentiates it from the systemic, the challenge oriented policies which were there earlier. So you see that there has been evolution in the thought process with respect to why the government intervention should happen, how the government intervention should also happen in order to support the science, technology and innovation policies. Another important conceptualization can be seen in the works of Professor Basant in his recent book. Here he has identified the major role of the innovation policy is to establish an environment which stimulates the firm and other economic entities to engage in innovation efforts. The overall objective, according to him, is the development of local innovation and technological capabilities. Professor Basant has highlighted that the innovation policies can be conceptualized in a narrow way or in a broad way. Narrow way, what you see, the policies they aim to essentially improve the creation, diffusion, and commercialization of the emerging technologies, the goods and processes. The focus being R&D, credit grants or tax incentive for innovation, IPR product protection, technology transfer funds are being created. So these becomes a major instruments in the narrow conceptualization, and it highlights the contribution of traditional sector, that is research and development, technology, engineering, manufacturing, etc. And this narrow conceptualization also built on the linear view of the innovation process and the emphasis on encouraging certain industries or sectors to innovate. So we have already understood the narrow view and linear view of innovation process in detail. So working on it, the instruments which are there are also very being limited. Broad conceptualization, now it addresses the different stages of the technological change, starting from invention, innovation, and its diffusion. There is a holistic and extensive perspective of innovation which acknowledges that it can take multiple forms and occur across various sectors of the economy. Innovation is not merely a technology, but it is much more than that. The idea is to create an enabling environment and identify the diversity of the innovation characteristics. Attempts are also need to be made to develop an innovation culture throughout the economy, emphasizing the relevance of non-technical and social advances in addition to technology advancement. As said earlier, the innovation policy instrument will vary whether you are conceptualizing it broadly or whether you are conceptualizing it narrowly. In the narrow conceptualization, the IPR protection, R&D tax incentive, subsidies becomes a major instrument. In the broad conceptualization, you will find that industrial, FDI, trade, cluster development, labor policies plays a very important role. Policies related to education, science and technology, the supply of skilled person, creation of knowledge and creation of new enterprises, supply services that contribute to the innovation, incubation of innovation-driven startups, policies for technology license, standard creation. So here in the broad conceptualization, you have this whole array of things. But then one can ask the question, how do you now bring all these conceptualization? Then one can ask that how do you bring all these policies together and understand its impact on the innovation? So there, the innovation public policy interface which Professor Basant has proposed can be understood in terms of what it impacts. So you have seen the different policies which are there in the broad conceptualization related to FDI, industrial development, startups, etc. or also with respect to the education. So a set of those policies can influence either the demand and the supply of the knowledge. The other can affect the competition and the contagion conditions. The contagion conditions are essentially related to the spillovers of the innovation as such. So then, let us try and understand it through a certain policy example. For example, we have this foreign direct investment policy. We have understood in our discussions earlier that how the policy has evolved in the Indian context from a restrictive regime to a one which is now a very open regime. Now, in initial years when there was allowing, in the initial year when the foreign presence was allowed in order to support the technology, there was one phase, and then we have the restrictive phase which started with the changes in the Foreign Exchange Regulatory Act and also seeing the exit of the various foreign companies from the country. And then after 1991, we have a very open economy which welcomes the foreign investment. Now this kind of policy can have an effect on what we have earlier understood, competition and the contagion factors. Now when you have the foreign companies present in the domestic industry, that will create a competitive environment for the domestic enterprises. Once the competition is present, particularly the neck-to-neck firms coming from the major results of Professor Aguillon will be now motivated and incentivized to invest in research and development. And they may also learn from the recent techniques, technologies, products which are being introduced by the foreign firms. So it will affect the competition which is present, and it will also have a contagion effect. So clearly we have a different phases of the foreign direct investment policies that will have different kind of an impact on the competition and contagion effect. In case of an industrial policy, a restrictive regime, when you are not even allowing the companies to expand, the resources which are available to them might be limited, vis-a-vis a very open economy where now companies can decide in which products to invest in, then it will have a majorly impact on the competition, also on the supply of the new products in the market. Right. So such companies might now be interested in maybe undertaking more research and development. We have seen the impact of the economic reforms that happened, and it's how it has influenced certain companies to become more competitive, increase their research and development, introduce better products in the market. So the supply of the new products will also be affected with respect to that. Education policy, you can very clearly see it will have impact on the supply of the new products, because education policy will directly influence the skilled labor which will be available in the market. As a result, the supply of the new knowledge based products will be influenced as such. Moreover, the demand for the knowledge products may also vary. Why? Because you will find that if knowledge products are more sensitive to how it is being used, whether people are able to kind of understand them or not, then having a more educated population is definitely going to influence that. If you think from a point of view of the startup policies, clearly if you are creating an ecosystem which is supportive of the startup companies, it will influence the competition in the market. Once again, look at the electric vehicle market where you have the existing incumbent which are very large firms, and then you see many small startups coming up. They are introducing different types of electric vehicle. Now they are posing a competition to the existing incumbent as such. Then it will also have an effect on the the spillovers that may accrue, and in terms of the diffusion of the product. So if coming back to this, the innovation and public policy interface, you will see that there is a whole set of policies. All of them will influence the innovation through either the demand and supply of knowledge or through the competition and contagion effect. Now one challenge definitely in this case becomes, how do you identify that what a particular effect it will have on the specific let us say innovation? That becomes challenging. And then, as I said earlier, when we identified the the challenges of the innovation policy, is basically how do you figure out the interface between different policies. There might be unintended consequences of certain policies in that particular case, and then how do you create a response mechanism to those is also very important. These STI policies, there can be a distinction in terms of who is formulating them. If a big high income country is formulating, the focus might be in establishing capacity in producing recent science based products as well as applying those innovations. Smaller economies might be facing difficulties to absorb, and as a result they may want to use these technologies while they enter the market. Catching up countries like that of India, they might be making effort to enter into promising sectors, identifying them, like at one point of a time Taiwan has done with respect to semiconductor, or even South Korea and Japan has identified those promising sectors, entered into them and developed their capabilities over a period of time.